So, are we about ready to get started? We good? We're good.
1 minute, please.
Okay.
Tim's ready.
Tim's more than.
I'm ready. Don't need
But we'll wait. Nikki, you give us the word.
Well, I'm just emailing Commissioner Neff because he wants to watch the live stream, and I just sent him the link. Okay.
Great. Okay. I will call this meeting on September 11th, 2017 of the Library Commission to order. And I will announce that Commissioner member Tim May is participating in this meeting via video teleconference from Tokyo State Tsukiji in Tokyo, Japan, and he has posted the agenda at his location. So I call us all to order. We are missing a few commissioners this evening, but we do have a quorum. So we will go forward, and we'll start with announcements. And I just want to announce that in the minutes attached to this agenda of our August 7th meeting, the misspelling of Tim May's name on page 2 has been corrected. So those are on the consent calendar, and I just wanted to alert people to that so they didn't feel they needed to pull them. And do we have any other announcements?
Yes, we do. I would like to announce the arrival of my HR analyst, Leilani Rihanna Viali, and she comes to us. Actually, she's a returning library employee, and she has several years of experience of HR experience, and she's a college graduate from Sonoma State College. So I would like her to come up and just give you a little brief introduction, and we'll go from there.
Great, welcome.
Hello, I'm very happy to be back and working towards the human resources goals for the library in accordance with the strategic plan. And I'm here to serve. If anybody needs me, you have all my contact information via Suzanne's email. So,
great.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you.
We look forward to your work. Thank you.
Oh, Leilani Rinia Viali. You're welcome.
Are there any other announcements? All right. And at this time, library advisory boards and Friends of the Library may speak if they wish to, and seeing none, we will move on to item number 5, special presentations, and we'll start with the 5.1 training updates. Kyle O'Neill.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Kyle O'Neill. I am the Training and Development Specialist for our library, and I was hired about a year ago for this position. And so one of the things we had discussed, I think on my third day on the job, was about a year in that we would have me come up and talk about all of the training items that we've had going over the course of the last year. So while this isn't an exhaustive list of all the training that has been going on, this is kind of a good overview, particularly of the ongoing items and things that we'll see again in the future. One of the main items that we've has been a big part of my job, particularly in the past 6 months, has been training of staff for new positions based on opening on Mondays, thanks to Measure Y. We trained about 65 people for positions starting in April of this year, which split up into about 16 librarians, 15 associates, 26 specialists, 6 aides, and 2 other positions. The other positions being a building mechanic and our HR analyst. The next slide has a breakdown and a graph of what all those positions were and where they went. A couple of the highlights, Central got a number of new positions. A number of those came from our extra help pool, which meant that we had to then go and replenish our extra help pool with a number of other new positions. And the other branch that got quite a few was Sebastopol, which got 8 positions in total, most of which I believe were brand new to the organization, so they had a lot of turnover as well. Through this process, we've been able to establish a number of what I'm calling system training requirements as part of what every staff will go through as they orient and onboard to the Sonoma County Library. They start off with our system orientation, in which I talk to them about what our mission is, what the strategic plan is, what the library organizational structure looks like, what each of our individual branches are, and a couple of fast facts just to get them oriented to our organization. They have time to go through our benefits orientation and new hire paperwork, anti-harassment training and IT orientation to learn about our email and phone systems and such. We give them a little tour of central administration so they can see where people sit. We have our payroll and web time training, a facilities training for arming and disarming different spaces within our library, as well as putting in work orders, a workplace safety training, which goes over a broad view over our emergency procedures and protocols, what to do when we're dealing with customers that are concerning us with their behavior. And this is where we also really start digging into our active shooter training, which we'll be taking on the road pretty soon here for the rest of the organization. And we close it out with our customer service excellence training. So this is what we ask everyone who comes into our organization to go through and be a part of. Because most of the 65 positions that we trained were public service, there was a number of other trainings that these positions had to go through. Our library aides had to go through a public services overview. In addition to that public services overview, our library specialists went through Horizon training and circulation onboarding, as well as a little bit of training about our ILL or interlibrary loan system. And then on top of those 4 trainings, our librarians and associates went through a number of things, including adult collections overview, youth services and collections overview, fine training, which is using our catalog. Our Ask Us training has an asterisk next to it because our trainer, John Haupt, and I agreed that that might not be best served in an orientation onboarding process, so that's going to be moved to probably about 3 times a year. We'll do a digital training with that. As well as looking at our digital branch and e-resources overview and a couple other things in there. And then for the lucky few who were also youth services librarians, there were a few more things they had to look at this point. Children's librarians did story time planning, children's collection development, outreach and event planning. They observed a number of different story times at different places across the county, and a couple of different library events depending on what was available at that time. Our teen services librarians did something fairly similar, looking at teen collection development, outreach and event planning. They spent some time shadowing one of our teen services librarians, both at the branch and what it would look like to be out on school visits, and then observing, again, more library events depending on what was available. We did a bit of evaluation based on those 65 people who went through just to see what our process was looking like for them and how it was serving them. The first question that we asked is, did the training process help you feel energized and welcome to our organization? And the sliding scale was 0 feeling not welcome and 100 feeling very welcome. And we scored 88. So while there is definitely some room to improve there, 88 I think is a really healthy score for us to start off at. The next question was, how did you feel about the pacing of the training schedule? 0 meant that it was too slow, and 100 represented overwhelming, so we were looking for somewhere right in the middle there, around 50, and we scored 52, so we're pretty happy about where that landed overall. The next question was, if you have a question regarding the services, materials, collections, and other processes of the library, do you know how to find answers? Because I think too often when we think about training, it's that you'll go through a week or two and you'll know everything when you leave, and everyone who's gone through training knows that that's not how it works, and you have a variety of other questions afterwards. So more than checking to know that our new staff knew all of the answers, I wanted to know if they knew how to find the right answers. There were 3 different possible responses for this question. The first one came in at 52%, saying that yes, they know how to find answers and who to go to. The 48% came in with number 2 at, I think I know how to find answers and I know who to go to, but I might have a couple questions. We didn't have any staff choose the final question, which was, I don't know where to go with my questions. So I think it's pretty good that way, at least through the training process, our staff have some sort of contact to where to go to when they need to ask some questions. And then we asked, did the orientation and subsequent training prepare you to begin your position? A little over 90% of our staff said yes, and just under 10%, or about 4 people, said no. And there were a couple other suggestions that if we move to the next slide, we'll get into those. We also asked them to rate individual sessions on a scale of 1 being poor and 5 being good on the quality of the session, and then also on the presenter. For each one of our sessions, we rated between 4 and 5, which on a scale of 1 to 5, that's right about where we want to be. Some recommendations for future trainings were to revise the Horizon and Circulation training, which is a project that I've been working on with our circulation supervisors already. We have some ideas about what we can do moving forward to make that more memorable and engaging. There was a request for a reference practicum, which I'm thinking might be where perhaps some of our new library associates felt like they were undertrained and weren't as prepared, as these people didn't go through an MLIS program and might need some more help about how to answer reference questions. So we'll be developing that particularly for our new associates as they come through. There was a request for expanded Baker and Taylor training, so we'll work on developing that. And then also for de-escalation and handling difficult customers, and I've got a couple names to look into for that sort of training. There was a request for more time in branches, and especially as we moved into our later trainings in July and August, what we tried to do was make it so there was about half day of training that we do kind of centralized, and the other half of the day would be spent either in their branch or with their direct supervisor, kind of getting that chance to connect with the people they'd be working for on a more regular basis. That hopefully helped them feel more welcome and excited about the position they were starting. There was also a request for more benefits, or time for benefits paperwork, so people could ask more questions, and that should not be too hard. We've got a couple other sessions that are usually scheduled right around it that we're starting to run a little bit shorter, so that'll be pretty easy for us to move forward with. We also have instituted online training with a software called Skooks, to follow up with our orientation and onboarding that happens in person. The initial series started with a website review, so people could go through our website and see the number of items that were there and where to find them. There was a chance to read through our strategic plan and a couple different presentations, including a general overview of our library finances, looking over our core competencies, a review of our customer service model, and presentations on our materials management, the history and genealogy branch, and the adult literacy program. We've since revised that a little bit and added standards of behavior training. Money handling has gone from being an in-person presentation to an online presentation, as well as professional development, performance management kind of swallowed the core competencies, and that's one now. And then we're continuing to update our web resources, one sheets, just one quick reference information so we can stay current with what's available there. One of the other big items that is coming up very quickly is our All Staff Day, which is happening on Friday. We know that you've all been given the save the date and given the email invite, but right now I'd like to officially, in person, invite you all to come to our All Staff Day on Friday. Our theme this year is One Sonoma, and the idea is looking at the variety of changes that we've had exist in our organization over the past year, and looking at a number of ideas that we have in our strategic plan that, while a number of us are thinking about, I don't feel like they necessarily permeate as far down to all of our library workers as we want them to. So our One Sonoma is really bringing that in for us as an entire organization, but also as who we are as an organization to the entire county. So we will start off our day, we're having everyone arrive for registration and welcoming around 9 o'clock. We will be ready to start welcoming people in at 8:45, and we'll have plenty of time to check in, get some coffee, have some treats, and visit. We'll start with our welcome address at 9:30, where Angelina and I will get up and welcome everyone to All Staff Day, give them a couple quick thanks, and hear some particular details for the course of the day that they need to move forward. We will have our keynote with Mike Robbins, who's a renowned speaker who will talk with us about the difference between recognition and appreciation, and really how a number of organizations move more towards recognition but kind of miss the shot a little bit when it comes to appreciation. So we'll have a nice morning address along those lines. We'll have a 15-minute break, and then Tracy will talk to us with the director's address, talking about where things are going and what's happening right now. And then we'll have lunch provided by Panera Bread with sandwiches and salads, with a variety of different vegetarian and vegan options, which we knew were important based off of previous years' evaluations. At 1 o'clock, we'll get into our service awards. We have about 8 staff members who are looking to get recognized publicly this year. What we're asking is that this year we make those presentations a bit more succinct, and that we'll just have the recognition of their name and how many years they've been around, and then they can come up and get their award and then move back. Truncating that process encouraged a number of more people to want to get recognized in that way rather than having a couple paragraphs about themselves. And then after the recognition of the service awards, we'll have a chance, Catherine Reinhardt and our history and genealogy team have put together a Sonoma County Library trivia. So staff will get that in a piece of paper in their welcome packet, and they'll have a chance to go through and fill those out. And then at 1:20, they'll get a chance to go through those, and we'll get the top 3 point getters, some prizes. And then we'll go into our sessions. These particular sessions are what represents the ideas that are within our strategic plan, but I think don't necessarily get as much attention as they should or that we want to. We'll have Jeannie Harmon from the SRJC Child Development Department. We'll talk about ages and stages of youth, not just for our children's services librarians, but for anyone who is going to be interacting with children on a fairly regular basis. Jim Leedy and Holly Trujillo from the Sonoma County Community Development Commission will be talking about homelessness in Sonoma County. Carolyn Glanton and Jane Elias from the Sonoma County Energy and Sustainability Department will talk about environmental sustainability. Wallace Brosman, who's a community disability advocate, is going to do a Disability 101 for us. Wanda Tapia from the Latino Service Providers is going to talk about engaging your Latino population. And then a representative from NAMI Sonoma County will talk about mental health and how we help. Each one of these sessions is built and to discuss both things that are going on in the entire county so we can align the stuff that we're doing with other efforts that are going on, but we'll also talk to things that we can do individually to support these things, both as employees and as individuals. And then we'll have staff will get a chance to go to 2 of those 6 sessions. We'll have a 15-minute break in the middle. At 3:30, we'll come together and do a wrap-up, because I think one of the things that's very difficult after these days is to take all that information and then just go back to your typical positions without really getting a chance to use the energy that you've gained from these moving forward. So we'll get to come back into our teams that we work with, as in our branches and our divisions, talk about a couple of things that we could start looking at doing moving forward. We'll do a final team builder at 3:50 and send us off at 4 o'clock. One of the other projects I've been working on is what I'm calling Advance. It is a larger 6-module training system for our entire organization to go through. Module 1 is customer service, which we've started off that with the customer service training that we've given all of our new hires. We've also taken that on the road, and at this point, 80% of our staff has gone through our new customer service model, which is developed by myself, Nancy Klebon, and Jennifer Duran. We'll also look at putting together some sensitivity and diversity programming and looking at different personalities as customers to tease out some of those particularly challenging situations a little bit more. Module 2 is looking at building a positive work culture, which I'm working on with Suzanne Silva, so we'll be doing team building with branches and divisions. Module 3 is going to be an online program looking at review of services for a variety of different people across our organization. Module 4 is looking at building and maintaining materials and connections, which I'm getting help from Jamie Anderson, Jane Greenwood, and Rano Sarnan. Module 5 is ergonomics and safety, where we review all of our emergency protocols and procedures and maybe get some ergonomics advice. And Module 6 is technology, where Vicki Turbovich and I have worked together on creating a series of digital and technology competencies where we'll essentially be testing the entire organization to see where we're at with these and then providing a variety of other training opportunities so that people can feel more confident when we start adding new technology items for them. And just to look at ending this, there are a couple of things that we have in the hopper right now. And of course, like I said in the beginning, this does not represent everything that's in the works right now. I kind of joke with everyone that even if we didn't add anything else that we wanted me to start training on to my list yet, I still have enough to go for about another 2 years without anything else. But currently we're working on revising some online training, including youth services, collections overview. We just finished our ILL online training review, which was great. We're going to be moving anti-harassment training to online, which has been pretty standard for a lot of organizations, so we're excited to move that forward. I've been doing a little bit of mental health training recently, and the immediate hunger for more information on that has been pretty evident. So I've got a team of 4 people who will be working with me to develop some policy and procedures that we can give to the entire organization, as well as establish a plan for what other training we might need and how to, and what the priorities for those trainings are. And then Suzanne has been helpful in identifying someone to help with some managers training to deal with some of the specific legal issues that some of our managers might be facing. And I think that wraps me up. Do you have any questions?
Wow, that's a lot. Are there any questions from the commission? Barbara.
I'm just curious. It's very impressive.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed your overview, and it's great to have a centralized training, plan. So you realize how much there is to train people on. It's amazing. I was just kind of curious. The new employees, was that kind of a classroom setting, and how many days it was, or how did you get all those people?
Sure. It depended because we had certain training groups that started with about 5 or 10 people and certain that started with closer to 30. So it kind of depended on how many group or people we had starting with each group. Generally, depending on the position, it could last probably about 1 week for an aide or someone who wasn't in public service. Public service who were not youth services librarians probably lasted around 2 weeks. And then youth services librarians were closer to 3 weeks to add in that extra bit that they were looking at. Of course, peppered in with time that they had in their own branches as well. Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I'm curious about this, but what's Baker and Taylor training? And should I be taking it?
Baker and Taylor is the service that we use for ordering new materials. And so there was a request to get some more time with how we go about making that training and making selections and recommendations. Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. Excellent presentation. Thank you for all the great information. Who's doing the training?
Great mix of people. I do a good portion of it, but I also try to make sure that our staff who are more proficient in certain information get that. So our circulation supervisors are the one who overview our Horizon training and circulation practicum. Kathy DeWeese is the one who talks to them about youth services. Jamie's the one who talks to them about materials management. So it's really kind of looking at when we have particular trainers who are best somewhere else in our organization, I schedule them to do the training, and otherwise it's probably me.
Commissioner May, do you have any questions?
I just had a comment. I'm wondering about if there are any of these modules that might be useful for the training for new commissioners?
Or even old commissioners?
Well, yes, or experienced.
I had the same thought.
I would be happy to make them available. We could absolutely do that.
Well, I was thinking in particular your module on violence in the workplace. That might be a good one to share with the commission.
Sure.
You know, here we are at a public meeting, so that seems appropriate. And the the electronic training. Oh yeah, the logging in email. I still struggle with some of that.
Sure, we can
Like the
absolutely.
address book, whole thing. So things like that. It might not be a bad idea for commissioners to have some of this training too.
Sure, we can look at developing something for all of you, no problem.
Great. Any other comments or questions?
Mr.
Tim.
The one I'm thinking about is the overview of the strategic plan and goals. That's the right.
Sure. I mean, the overview that I do at this point is pretty basic. I introduce the initial ideas and read each one of the goals for each one of the 5 sections are, and then I give them more time online of their own to read through that individually and kind of see where they're at. Then usually they'll go back to their direct supervisors and talk about it more if they have further questions. But sure, I mean, I'd be happy to come and talk a little bit more about it, though I don't know that I have the full expertise on the strategic plan that other people in the organization might.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? All right, well, thank you so much. It's very nice to hear all this information. We really appreciate it, and fabulous.
Thank you.
May I add something here? Kyle's an excellent employee. He's done a great job with the training since I came on board, and we've put this orientation together. He does also other training too. He's helped a lot to clean up the subsystem too. So the orientation that he's put together for the new employees, like he said, the first 2, I think the first day is what's the core orientation program, where benefits is done by Carmen, and some of the anti-harassment in the facilities and other things are done, by HR and the other key members of the core agency. But I think some of the things you're referring to may be what's considered as a new, like you said, a new board member orientation or refresher for board members. So that may be something separate and apart that we can maybe discuss offline. But I think the focus might be a little bit different for board members. So maybe we can discuss that at another time.
Yeah.
But I think the concept is great. So.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anyway, thank you.
Thanks. All right, so that takes us to commission and liaison reports. So we'll start with commissioner reports, and I'll just for the first give my report. I attended both the Sebastopol lab and the Healdsburg lab, and Sebastopol is planning to do a presentation on their activities along with the Friends of Sebastopol Library at our November meeting. So that's my report. So we'll start with Paul.
The Guerneville lab will be meeting Wednesday, so I have nothing to report on that. And I think it was a slow August, so I have nothing else to say, I guess.
Nice. Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes, I attended the Library Landmark event along with some other commissioners on August 10th. I thought it was really cool, wonderful, memorable event. It was great to see Jane Schultz there. Appreciate all the work Angelina did on that, and Tracy did a wonderful presentation. So that was a day I won't forget. It was really super. I attended the second OPEB meeting on August the 15th. And right after that, I had the Friends of the Library meeting and then the lab meeting. All that happened on the same day. We had an amazing Rona Park Katati lab meeting. The chair of the English department at Sonoma State turns out to be a volunteer at the library, a new volunteer, so he came. And then we had, for the first time in I don't know how long, the school district of Rancho Katati has a school librarian in the high school. And he came, and so we had the university and the high school, and it was all just really cool, and it was a really wonderful feeling about supporting libraries throughout our community, and it was excellent. We made the decision to have a table again this year at Founders Day, Roanoke Park Founders Day, which is Saturday, October 7th. Last year we did it, and we had more people come. I mean, we had lines of people. It was a really terrific event. So anyway, looking forward to that. I attended the first Measure Y Oversight Committee. I'm going to be the liaison, commission liaison to that. It was a great group of people. All but one person could come. Ken did a really nice collection of materials for everybody. There were good questions asked. The chair and the vice chair were selected. It was really good energy and really, I think it's going to be a great group. They want to meet quarterly, and so I think we meet again in November. And I got in the car. My husband brought me down here to the meeting, and he handed me this Sonoma County Transportation Authority and Regional Climate Protection Authority newsletter. At the bottom it says upcoming home energy workshops, which are going to be put on at the Sonoma County Library in conjunction with the Energy and Sustainability Division. I'm not sure who they are, but anyway, it's really cool to find out some of the libraries doing, not through the library, but through this other organization, so cool stuff. And lastly, I was on a 2 weeks vacation in Eastern Canada, in Montreal, Quebec, and Nova Scotia, and one night we had a free night, and I happened to walk by this amazing building, and it was the Halifax Public Library, and it was unbelievable. 5-story building. The top story was kind of this tilted glass box, and so I went through all 5 stories. They have a coffee shop and cafe and that big floating building up there at the bottom, as well as inside. Big art exhibit, huge, beautiful theater in there showing free movies. It was just gorgeous and open 72 hours. And because it's Canada, the federal government chipped in, and the provincial government chipped in, and municipal government chipped in. So it was really astonishing. And right after that, we went to dinner. And I said to the waiter, just as a chit-chat, have you ever been to your public library? And he said, oh, that's where I take everybody when they come from out of town. And I thought that's just exactly what we've talked about. We want our libraries to be. And it actually, somebody actually said that to me. So anyway, super cool. It was a great experience. Thank you very much.
Nothing to report.
Commissioner May, do you have a report?
Our lab met recently. We have has yet to be officially appointed 2 new youth members. They decided to do 2 instead of 1 this time, so that because people who tend to be youth members are busy, if they couldn't make a meeting, at least one of them could. Also, we started the discussion about the possible or the potential refresh of the Luma branch, which may be after this year. And Joe presented sort of the beginnings of a wish list of things that our endowments might and our friends' contribution might be able to make happen. And and our branch to be so impressed with all that's going on. I just realized it's probably in the report, but they're doing a workshop on how to write UC questions and admissions to that kind of extent. It's just wonderful. So that's all from me.
Commissioner Garcia?
The Santa Rosa Lab meets Wednesday the 27th of this month.
Commissioner Foxen?
Well, I was kind of homebound, so one of the things I did was I started another class from edX, and this is on part of a certification for some kind of librarian, something or another. But there's some pieces of that I really liked, and one of them was identifying community needs. And as an advocacy, part of the advocacy committee, and wanting to get to know my own community and the system as a whole better, I thought this would be a good place to start, which I have. So I'm really enjoying that. I also started back up with the SOPs. But my main thing tonight is I want to thank Keo and Jamie Anderson and Chris Lavanish for working with Energy and Sustainability Division of Sonoma County, Sonoma Clean Power, and the Water Agency, and making the DIY kit come alive. They launched it today, and I'm so happy to hear that. The pilot was a success, and now everybody has access to it. And I think Barbara mentioned a series of workshops that will be coming up for everybody to go to. So I just want to thank you all for working so hard to make that possible.
All right, thank you. So now we'll go into the committee and liaison reports. The first is 6.2.1, the director evaluation. Committee met this afternoon, and we met with interim director Tracy Gray, and it was our first quarterly meeting with her. We'll meet next with her in December and so on. So I have nothing to report out of that meeting, just it was our first quarterly. And the Finance Committee, 6.2.2.
Yes, the Finance Committee meeting was canceled for August. Our interim director and CFO both had other commitments. So we are rescheduling, well, we're just carrying business over to the September meeting. The September meeting date has been changed this time to 9/25. So because of the change in the schedule of the commission meeting. So anyway, our next meeting is the 25th. Thank you.
Okay, the Advocacy Committee?
Well, we met August 14th and updated the status of the Foundation Friends and Labs in relation to the commission. And we began discussing how developing talking points for, in particular, the labs to use as they contact various government officials and their own JPA people. And out of that have come a couple of other things to do with labs, one of which is being addressed tonight. Anyway, and Angelina has presented us with possible suggestion for raising the visibility of the commission and doing better outreach, which I think is great, and we're working on that right now. As far as the SCA 3 amendment that's going through the California legislature, they had their third reading today. I don't know what came out of it or what happened. I hope to find that out in the next few days, and I will give the information to Jane if there's anything that we need to do, and she can pass it out to everybody. And as far as the Institute of Museum and Lab Services part of the budget, the federal budget, to my knowledge, the last I heard, it has been put back into the budget. So that's working good. Apparently, there was enough pressure to make some changes there. So that's my advocacy report for tonight.
All right, thank you. The Foundation Liaison report.
I did not attend the last meeting, but it's my understanding the foundation is supporting the cost of the speaker for the All-Staff Day.
Okay. The ad hoc OPEB retirement, I think you mentioned this a little bit, Commissioner McKenzie, but do we have more of a report? The next meeting is in November, is that correct?
We don't have the OPEB rescheduled for the
right, after we get the information from the actuary. Thanks. And then the ad hoc SOP procedures, we have a workshop scheduled for the commission. It's a public meeting that'll be held in the Forum Room at Central on the 30th of this month. And did you have something to add to that, Commissioner Foxen?
Yeah, I kind of got slowed up with getting these done, but I'll have the draft done by the end of the month for that workshop.
Great.
The standard operating procedures.
Okay. And Measure Y oversight, you made a few comments about it, but did you want to add anything?
I think the only thing I'd add is I did write down the date here, that the next meeting is going to be Wednesday, November the 8th at 1:30 p.m. at Central Library. And again, it was a very enthusiastic and active group. I have high hopes for them. I think they'll end up with a good report at the end of the year for us.
Great. And then the Ad Hoc Director Search Committee, we are a committee of 5 commissioners, and we also have the addition of former Commissioner Hillary Smith, who had been our Cotati Commissioner, and she works at Sonoma State University Library. She's joined the search committee also, and we also have the help of Suzanne Silva, our HR Director. So the committee is recommending that the commission hire an outside consultant. So the committee worked some on a draft request for proposal. We are developing a list of vendors to make sure are alerted to this RFP, and I think Suzanne will be taking our comments and coming up with a draft in the next week or so for the committee to review. Our hope is to have a final version of the RFP for October commission meeting, where we will ask the commission to authorize the committee to proceed with publicizing the RFP, and we would come back to the commission with requests to hire after we go through the RFP process. But that's where we are. Okay. Any questions? Comments? All right. I believe we've all seen some press coverage that was sent out to the library staff earlier this last week or late last week. There's a lot of good publicity about the library, and it's very lovely to see all of that throughout the county, these articles. That takes us to the consent calendar, item 8. So these are routine administrative actions. Any commission member or member of the public may request that an item be removed from this calendar and have it placed with the action items. If there is no request for removal of any of these items, then these items are deemed to be approved by the commission and passed. So seeing no requests, so ordered. And that takes us to discussion items. We have interim director's report, item number 9.1.
Sure. The only thing I would like to add is I want to thank Kyle for his informative presentation this evening. That was really great. And I also want to thank Kyle and Angelina for putting together All Staff Day. They worked really hard on a really great program. I'm really looking forward to Friday, having all the staff together and learning a lot of great things about Sonoma County. So I'm looking forward to that. And then secondly, just to update the commission on the library headquarters move. I've had a few questions of a date of move-in. We don't have a definite date yet. We will, once we have a date that we'll start moving in, we will roll that out. We'll have a press release. We'll have it on our library website, all of that information. Just to give a roundabout date, we're also working with, Vicki's working with her internet and phone providers, so we're waiting on their timeline. They have a timeline as when they can do the work as well, and Dave is working with a company with the furniture, so when that can get ordered and delivered. So optimistically, end of October, mid-November is what I'm going to tentatively say for the move, when we may move in stages as well. So once we have more specific, detailed information, we'll roll that out to the staff, the commission, the public.
Very quickly, are we paying rent right now?
No, we are not.
When do we start?
Our lease begins October 1st.
Thank you.
So part of that time period during October will be doing things inside the building, right?
Correct. We'll have
Make
access.
It move in ready and
right. And then if the owner can't have the work done that they're committed to by October 1st as well, then there's the possibility of renegotiating that as well.
Okay. Any comments or questions, Commissioner McKenzie?
Just a point of clarification. I did notice that we paid $35,510 for rent. That was paying October rent ahead. Is that required by the lease? That was required by the lease that we pay.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner May, did you have any comment?
No.
All right. So any other reports you want to make at this time, or should we go into the monthly activities document? 9.2.1. Any comments or questions about the monthly activities report? there's a lot of activities, as always. It's always so very impressive to see all that is happening. I did have a question on the community engagement, and that is on page 38. So there's this activity let's see, what is it called? Together at the Table, and I just wondered when that would start. When will those topics, and how will they be going out to all the different branches at the same time? How's that going to work exactly? Because it sounds very interesting.
It's very exciting. It's this grant project that we were lucky to have received, and so we are actually in the process right now of the planning, and we've got a logo designed, and we're building the curriculums for the different topics. We had our first meeting last week with the community partners for the first topic, which is climate change, and we are planning to host those first events in October. What it's going to look like at the branches, at every branch at the same time, there will be what we're calling a pop-up space. It'll be a temporary library display exhibit space with materials, with books, with information, with interactive displays, so like you would kind of pose a question of the week, that kind of thing, and give people the opportunity to respond. And the intent is to really educate people on these important issues and to get them talking to each other. So that's going to be in every branch, and the topic will change as the topic changes. The events around it, there will be 2 events for each topic, and they will be at different branches. So the climate change one, which is coming up in October, will be at Sonoma and Rohnert Park. The topic after that will be immigration, and the branches for that, I don't have it in front of me, I think are Central and Cloverdale, maybe. Angelina, we can have that sent out to the commission, the update with all of the topics, and we don't have the dates yet, but we have the locations and we have the month. Like it'll be in this month, or these 2 months, it'll be the immigration topic and at these locations. So we can get that out to you.
Great. Well, when you're ready, yeah.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
It's interesting, yeah. Any other comments or questions?
I have a comment on one of the topics, Blackness in America. And given the largest minority group in Sonoma County, and I'm not saying we should not do Blackness in America, we should be looking at Latinos in America, or just diversity in America.
That's a very, very valid point, but we thought that it was very important to have a discussion about Blackness in America, primarily because we don't have a large Black African American population in Sonoma County, and just with all of the information in the news, all of the things happening around the country, we feel like, that doesn't happen here, that doesn't apply to us, and we really want to get that conversation started so that people actually do understand that all issues of race apply to us, and we need to talk about them. So that was kind of what our thoughts were, was just to get people talking, even though it's a topic that people might think is not as relevant.
Please don't misunderstand me. I think it's very relevant. But I also think all of those issues that are looking at Blackness in America, we're also looking at Latinos, and at some point, we've been looking at Asians and other things like that. And so I would say to you, Blackness in America is very important, but also our Latinos in America, especially with the new DACA and the things that are going around right now. And some things are Latinos in America that have nothing to do with DACA or immigration. Thank you.
And one more thing I would say is I would very strongly encourage you to come to the events and to participate and to share that perspective, because we want to get that conversation going, and we really want to have it be a lively conversation, an important conversation. Thank you.
I think I saw David Ebright and then Commissioner McKenzie.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions and a couple of comments. The annual public library survey, who's being surveyed? Is it the library filling out information about who we are? Okay, we're not sending out a survey. We're filling out a survey.
Is this the report that goes to the state library? Yeah.
Correct.
So it's something actually that I think the commission is technically supposed to be seeing that this happens, and so we'll be excited to see the report when all of you get it done.
Well,
Go ahead, Vicki.
well, I'm just waiting
turned my mic on.
Oh,
So you can hear me. In Sonoma County Library, Jaylene heads it up. She collects all the information for us from all the different departments, and then it's summarized, and then she turns it into the state library every year, and it's also turned into the national ALA.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I may. Not that tall, so. Good evening, Commissioners. Just for the record, Jaylene Dumapon, the assistant to the director. And yes, I did lead the survey last year, which was my first experience with it. And I am doing it this year, but I cannot do it without so many staff members here. So they're a really big part of it. What happens is we get contacted by the state library, and they let us know when the survey opens. So we have, for this year, the state survey is going to be opening on September 18th. And we have until October 30th to complete that. So we're starting that process right now. And we'll be filling out, gathering statistics, IT. I mean, it's a huge collaboration effort to get this done. Very time consuming, but just great information. There is a webinar tomorrow that many of the staff hopefully will be attending. It's primarily for those that are responsible for filling out the survey. And that would be me. And for those that have not had experience or exposure to it, human resources would be one. So I would imagine that HR team will be participating as well. And so we're hoping to have it completely done about mid-October, at which point, we can certainly provide the commission with maybe a comparison so you can see what was reported last year compared to this year, and really see where our statistics go up and down and where we're doing great and maybe not so. But anyone have any questions?
that'd be great to have it on our November agenda. We'd love to see it.
Great, thank you very much for answering.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And then if I can keep going on, the community engagement grant is wonderful. I think in addition to so many other wonderful things, it's nice to see the library as a community center and a community resource. So thanks very much for that. Also, as I was looking through here, I was appreciative to see Measure Y called out in a couple of different places. So that's just good for, I think, all of us to know when people say, where's that money going? Well, here are a couple of good examples of things. So it was nice to see that called out. I appreciate that. And the last comment I have is I love getting the adult literacy newsletter. It's one of the most moving pieces of material I see. So that's much appreciated for the work that happens there.
Commissioner Lindsay?
Yeah. A couple of things. I wanted to give a special acknowledgement. This report, there's so much in it. I hope I'm not speaking in the wrong place, but the 2 days that the library was, the system was going to be down, and then it wasn't down for 12 days. And I noticed, I think this was in Director Turbovich's comments, but that Mike Daw did a wonderful job in organizing it, and I thought we should give him a special shout out and thank you. I also, in general, there's so much going on. All the things that we've talked about tonight, all these special new things, the leasing of the books is coming up, and just so much stuff. I want to reflect back again on my visit to the Halifax Public Library. They had these big screen TVs on every floor with stuff that was going on, free movies, health classes. It was, you could really tell what was going on. And I'm not sure that we're always able to get the word out of all the stuff that's going on, especially all the new programs. We still are kind of relying on flyers, and I know we're looking at that and trying to consolidate information on flyers. When we do the tabling at the farmers market or other places, we don't really have a nice consolidated thing. That's one part of it, but I would really like to see, and I know I'm not the only person who's ever talked about this, but some screens in our branches, and I see that Director Turbovich is ready to jump in there with an answer.
Right, I am ready to jump in there because we have purchased the computers that go on the back of the flat screen displays, and every branch will have either a 55-inch or a 70-inch display in it. I'm working through the process of the bidding process right now with 3 different companies. So I hope by the end of October we've made the decision about a company to sell us that or lease that to us and install those units for us. And in some libraries there will be more than one, like one in the entryway and one in the children's area or other area of the library, including the rural stations that will have one as well. And in Roseland, since we don't own the building, we have a special idea about how we're going to have it attached to a heavy cart on a pole and so forth. So that is happening right now. We have settled on the computer that connects to these. It's a company called Reach, and the marketing department and graphics department is working with one of my staff to help us with the display and what it will say and how it can say something different at every location and so forth, using some of the tools that we have, like the calendar of events that's specific by branch and so forth. So I've done this kind of digital display in lots of different places. When I worked at the UCLA libraries, we had a video wall, and that was several years ago. So we're starting with one right now, and we're going to be looking at how we can make sure that the events are specific to the location on the displays and so forth.
Thank you. Could I just add one quick thing, just in reference to what Commissioner Ebright said? That maybe we can highlight Measure Y fund expenditures on some of these things that are flashing on the screen, just as a reminder.
Absolutely. That's the game plan. Thank you.
Great. Any other comments, Commissioner May? Anything?
No, people have all talked about what I was going to talk about.
All right. Good.
I just want to comment on the charge-up stations. That's pretty cool. I kind of like this. Is that going to be in all libraries?
Yep. We actually started rolling those out 2 weeks ago. It was really exciting, and I just want to put in a request. The friends are always asking what they can buy, and for example, we put the one in Roanoke Park Library on Friday, and we already were talking about, wow, wouldn't it be cool if there was one in the children's area for busy moms and dads who've got kiddies running around and so forth. We have put them in 5 of the locations already, and some of them are smaller wall mount units, but still handle 8 items at a time. So I really think that I want to give a shout out to Catherine Greco, who worked with the Vector Graphics to customize them for our locations. And we got really good recommendations from the folks at Kaiser Permanente, who have the same brand, as well as the folks at Sonoma State, the very same brand. And so it's really, it was really exciting to take them out there and plug them in, and people are like, wow, great, so we're charged up at the Sonoma County Libraries.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody. So that takes us to 9.2.2, the monthly financial report.
this isn't going to be as exciting as all the stuff we just talked about, and really it shouldn't be. We should be concentrating on, we should be concentrating on all the good stuff, and the numbers should just be secondary to everything. So anyway, this starts on page 48. The month of July, it's only 1 month. There's not a whole lot going on that's out of the ordinary. The one thing that's a bit out of the ordinary is we received from sales tax revenue, and we've included that in there. It's about $670,000. They estimate that based on last year's tax returns, and it fluctuates. For instance, there's a 2-month lag between the payments and the month it's for. So in late August, we received the estimated June payment, and that was up around $900,000. So, there's more tourist activity and things like that starting in the summer, so it fluctuates all over the place. As Barbara pointed out, there was a couple things. We paid the first month's rent on the lease. They required the first month's rent and a deposit. And then the PG&E bill was the second thing over $25,000. The second page of the financials, page 49, it's a little bit different. And these are all open to. Whatever you guys would like to see, I can pretty much make it happen pretty easily. But I thought we'd change this a little bit just to give a summary of the general fund and then the sales tax fund and then the total. And as you can see there, no property taxes. Those don't come until December. Very little revenue in the general fund, and then the revenues in the sales tax fund. The majority of the expenses in the sales tax fund were salary and benefits. There will always be a bit of a lag for those funds or those expenses. A lot of the expenses are allocated. For instance, we get one PG&E bill. It's not split up for Mondays and 1 hour Wednesday. So we have to get those in and then allocate them out. So there's like a 1 month lag for things like that, landscaping, security, a lot of the bills that we get. So in August, you'll see more expenses rolling through the sales tax fund. And then the detail behind it there, the next 4 or 5 pages, maybe 6 pages. If anyone has any questions, I can certainly answer them, but nothing really out of the ordinary or anything to point out that I haven't already said.
Questions or comments from the commission? No?
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, that takes us to item 9.3, Library Management Organizational Structure. Director Gray?
Sure. So over the last few months, I've been evaluating and analyzing the current organizational structure, trying to find a more manageable supervision and number of direct report structure, specifically related to the Public Services Division. The idea is to help with the assist with the direct reporting and the supervising, and also in looking through the strategic plan. A high component of the plan is related to the community service type events like the table, Together at the Table grant and events and programmings, and that there's a very robust area for expanding our programs and services. So having a division manager to oversee that, I felt was a more ideal system as well. So you'll see on page 57 is where I sort of broke up the division manager, branches and patron services, and a second division manager, events and community services, and their focus. So page 58 is the current organizational structure that was presented in April with the current staffing. And you can see the visual under division manager. We were adding the adult services coordinator, a digital literacy specialist, and then all the current direct reports of the division manager. So you see it's quite long. So with the proposal that I have is creating this second division manager where one division manager would work directly with the branches and patron services. There's obviously more duties than are listed on page 57, but those are sort of the highlighted duties, the overarching duties of those divisions. And then page 59 shows the organizational chart with the vacant COO, which the commission had voted to put on hold until a permanent director was hired. So this is what the organizational structure would look like, having a COO or assistant library director. And then on page 60 is what it would look like if this were to be implemented currently without that COO position. So if that position was looked at the future, we would need a structure of where those direct reports, who they would report to currently. So page 60 would be what it would look like currently before an assistant director or COO is put on board. So because in discussing several times at OMT meetings, we concurred that the division manager priority we needed was the priority, that since a permanent director may not come on board until early next year, that this division manager would take the place of that, and that when we begin the discussions of next fiscal budget, the OMT would again reanalyze the needs of the library organization and determine at that point, and when the director comes on board, a permanent director, that would we need that COO position. So it's kind of using the funds and the current vacancy of that position now in this fiscal year. And I will say, I copied and pasted so many times and had so many versions. Page 60 accidentally has omitted Cloverdale and Sebastopol, so I have corrected those on the original. Are there any questions?
Any comments or questions? Any discussion about this? Commissioner McKenzie?
I think this is excellent, and it seemed, makes total sense from my point of view. The overwhelming amount of responsibility that is being shared, to a greater degree, and I just want to say that I'm really appreciative of all the information that you give us, that you detail it out, you plan it out, you analyze it, and then you give us your rationale, not only for this position, but for the earlier positions that were earlier in the packet. And it's really helpful to us. It's our responsibility as we make these, decisions on permanent expenditure in the budget to really know what it is that we're voting to approve. And I really appreciate the way you spell things out. So anyway, I think this, personally think this makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Any other comments?
I do.
Oh, Commissioner May.
Okay, my question is, this is a discussion item, so essentially at this point we're not acting. But my question is that I imagine at the next meeting we'll be given the action item. And essentially I want to be clear, we're establishing a new position called Division Manager of Events and Community Services. And I think it's a great idea, but I'm just wondering in terms of the technical details, when will a job description for this position be written? When will we as a commission formally approve this position? And then thirdly, we currently have the COO position, and now we have this new position. Is this going to be a permanent position? And if it is permanent, then it will be part of what the newly appointed director uses in reevaluating, or are we seeing it as a temporary position until the newly appointed director reviews the system and the organization chart? A lot of questions. I hope I got them all clearly there.
I can answer most of them. So we are, Suzanne and I, she's working on the job description. So for hopefully the October, I know the October commission meeting's just 3 weeks away. So we may not have the information for the October meeting, but hopefully by the November commission meeting. So it is a new position. We will have 2 separate job descriptions, one for each division manager. It would be a permanent position. And I'm not sure if I've answered all of your questions.
Well, then, basically, the COO position is still in the list of available positions, but it's not in the org chart currently, and it may or may not return.
Correct. So that is still there, and then this would replace that position in this fiscal year, and then for next fiscal year, it would be discussed the need to have that. So it's sort of, the position exists, it's just unfilled, would be the term.
Okay, and then the other question I have is, so that it's, are we going to formally approve this as a new position? When might that happen?
So we would put it on either consent or an action item. I don't think we'll be able to have it by October's meeting, but hopefully by November, if not October.
Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
Welcome.
Any other comments or questions? Comments from the public? All right. No further discussion, so we'll move on to item 9.4, discussion of lab appointment process. Director Gray.
Sure. So this started out with the Library Advisory Board application that needed update. You'll see on page 64. It needed a new logo. It needed some refreshing. We need to add Forestville and Occidental next to the Guerneville, which I've done thanks to Nancy Sampson's input. So it was just how to revise the Library Advisory Board internal process as far as what happens when somebody turns in an application or they're interested in applying to be a lab member. And then we also wanted to include information on the Library Advisory Board general webpage, which is page 65. What's highlighted in yellow is just including text from the Joint Power Authority about the Library Advisory Board, and then also adding that information to each of the branch Library Advisory Board pages. So on page 67, I put an example of the Petaluma Advisory Board page and included that same information just so that it's consistent with all of the branch pages. Each branch page has their own Library Advisory Board web page. So we just wanted to get that updated, and I want to thank the branch managers Lisa and Bill who worked on this and got input from the other branch managers and came up with this list. And I worked with Jane and Commissioner Whistler on some of the internal process. So it's basically just to improve the process and get good candidates and good information on our web pages.
Comments? Commissioner
I have one. In terms of I think I've already spoken with this with Tracy, but in terms of the procedure, the one question that I had was the reappointment process, and my memory is that, excuse me a second. My memory is that the proposed process asks for the reappointed members to refill out an application, and I mentioned that I didn't feel that was necessary. Maybe just some form of like intent to continue or some such thing, because basically by the time they're ready to be reappointed, basically the commissioner who does the reappointing would already know them and have a sense of their commitment to the lab, et cetera, et cetera. So that was the one part that I had a question. And I'm finished.
Okay, Commissioner McKenzie?
I agree with Commissioner May about the reappointment. I don't think you should have to reapply. I think the work you've done on the lab is, you're in the lab, you're watching it, so we don't have to ask them to reapply, I don't think, but confirm their interest or something like that, but not fill out an application. And the other thing, this isn't probably the right time to bring this up, but on page 65, lab purpose. The purpose of the lab shall be to provide information and to make recommendations to the Commission and the Library Director on matters affecting library service based on input from their respective service areas. I still want to, at some point, I don't know, are we working on this, kind of plump this up, because this really doesn't happen, up until, a couple of months ago, we hadn't, nobody ever comes down and talks to us and gives us input. I mean, this isn't really a description of what happens. And I don't know. We just need more clarity, I think, on the purpose of the labs, and I don't know where to add that or who should figure it out. But do you know what I'm talking about? This isn't really what happens with the labs.
Well, if I could comment, and I think Commissioner May was doing some work on this through the advocacy committee, if I'm correct. But I do believe that that's what the JPA says the purpose of the labs is. So it's something that is on the commission's list of priorities, is to clarify what the role of the labs is. So this is, as I mentioned to Commissioner May, this is what we need to do now, because we don't really have a good process or a good publicity about this on our website even. So this is, kind of a work in progress, but this is where we are, and this can certainly be changed and improved in the future.
Well, and I think one of the ways of working with that is to create the place where we were before Director Lear's resigning, was beginning to think of creating a lab handbook. Essentially uses the Sebastopol as a draft of behaviors as a base, working with administration with the advocate committee, and that's something I hope we'll be working on.
Okay, you broke up a little there, Commissioner May, but I believe we got the gist of what you were saying. So, any other comments, Commissioner Foxen?
Yeah, that is something that has definitely come up at the advocacy committee meetings, is how we can utilize and how we can create a better communication and a better interaction with the labs. So that is part of what we are beginning to address.
Commissioner Heavenridge?
Yeah, I know Guerneville adopted the Sebastopol lab handbook, and we've had several discussions during the lab meetings about this. How involved are the labs in this document itself? Are they having any input, or whoever?
So the lab members themselves were not. So the branch managers worked on this.
Okay. So I guess since I have a lab meeting on Wednesday, I don't know if I should bring this up or not.
Well, I would encourage you to bring it up and share it with the lab, and if they have input, we can take that and maybe the place is to take it to the advocacy committee and to Director Gray and share that. But in the meantime, this seems like we need kind of a stopgap thing. We had an issue with the process recently, so it'd be good to have something in place. Again, we can improve on it always. Commissioner Ebright.
Yeah, I'd like to speak to the reappointment issue. I think it is at the will of the commission, so a reappointment, it also could be someone might say they want to be reappointed and the commission could say no. So some sort of notification, I'm happy with what we've talked about, but I think that that's something that lab members should be aware of, just as I think we're all aware of that people appoint us to this commission, and we serve at their will. So I think that's an important line in there.
Commissioner Foxen?
Yeah, I just have a question more than anything. Here it says in the process, the application process, says the library commissioner interviews a candidate. Yeah, that's good. And then it says branch manager may talk with the candidate. Now, maybe I got it wrong initially, but I thought they also interviewed him.
Well, the process that I was familiar with from being on the commission was that the commissioner always interviewed the applicant. They would, I've asked my branch managers for information about the person. Usually the branch manager knows the person or has encouraged them to apply. But I never thought that the branch manager had to interview them too.
Okay, well that's what
But if the commission would like to make that change, you can. It just seems like an additional step. But I do absolutely believe the branch manager should be consulted.
Well, and then my following question was, I think that's good, but my following question was one of the things I think we need to think about in relation to the lab is how much the branch manager does of the lab work, some of the processing, the agenda setting, the notes, all that stuff. That's something that we need to talk about and discuss at some point in time. Not tonight, but at some point.
I think that's a separate issue, and I think that has come up before, because sometimes we think the branch managers have to work too hard, but also it's important to think of them as a stable piece in the process.
Absolutely.
So I don't think we can forget that. Their participation is pretty essential, I think. So any other comments or questions? Last word from Commissioner May.
Yeah, I have two. One of them, it was interesting. I'm glad that this is coming down the pike, because at our last meeting, unbeknownst to me, we had an agenda item to approve a reappointment of 2 lab members. And I basically had to say, well, essentially, it's my responsibility to suggest to the commission to appoint lab members. And so we can, you can make an motion to encourage me to reappoint them. But basically, I'm in charge. And so I'm glad that this is coming down the pike so that it's cleared out. And I think lab agenda for the next meeting. The other issue, though, is that if you look at the Petaluma one that's in the packet, we have 2 members that are past being reappointed. They're technically no longer on the lab unless they're reappointed. And it would be nice now, especially if perhaps because we now have the full-time clerical support, if there were a process to alert the commissioners that members' time is up, that it's like they're going to be done in July and it's March. How do you want to proceed? So technically, probably we should be on top of it, but it'd be nice to have the reminder.
Yes, I agree. I think that's something that's on a list of items.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so that takes us to action items by motion. 10.1, approve student 1 and educator card policy. So do I have a motion?
Second.
Okay, so I have a motion by Commissioner Garcia, a second by Commissioner May. All in favor?
Discussion?
Oh, sorry, discussion.
I just had one comment. We talked at the presentation of this last time about no fees, overdue fees. But the thing I feel like I read somewhere, but it isn't in here, is there may not be any fees charged to the student, but they can't check out any more stuff until they bring their old stuff back. Did I make that up, or? We didn't address that. So is that not something we want to address? I mean, the students can just keep taking out more and more stuff and never return anything back?
They can have up to 10 items checked out at one time.
Yeah, there is I think that would be addressed in the limit of number of items that they could check out at one time. If they don't return their items, then they can't check out more items. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, but it doesn't say that. I mean, you come down and you check out 10 items and you turn in 6 and you still have 4 at home. You can come down the next time and check out another 10.
So there are no overdue fines, but they still would be charged fees for lost items, and lost items would still go into the same process. Like after X number of days, it would age to lost, and they would get a notification. We did say in here that we would forgive up to 2 items per year of lost items, but they would still get a bill for a lost item if it were that overdue.
Wasn't really talking about lost as well as much as not turning your stuff back in.
So items that are not returned for, I think it's 60 days, are considered lost items.
Okay.
And then they move to that kind of billing process.
So normal checkout time is 21 days.
Mm-hmm.
And so if it's been 30 days and they come down and they check out 10 more and they're overdue, the other ones, we're not going to do anything about that. We're not going to limit the next.
They would not be allowed to check out more items if they still had 10 items out. They can have 10 items out at one time. So if they never return them, then they can never check out anything else. That's true, if that was your question. Like right now, with a regular library account, you can check out 30 items at one time. And you can't check out 30 more until you return those items, whether or not there's a fee.
And there are fees for the regular check.
Yes. The fee structure, it stands at the same as for regular library accounts. Mm-hmm. With that one caveat that we in the red are the things that we changed and added since the last meeting when we discussed. And one thing that we did add after feedback from the branch managers was that we did build in a forgiveness of up to 2 items per year for lost items for the students.
And this is a sort of a trial.
It is a trial, and we also said both in this policy and in the MOUs that we're in the process of developing that we will revisit each year.
Right. And we're starting. You're starting with the Santa Rosa schools.
Santa Rosa City Schools. We were working with Roseland Schools and Santa Rosa City Schools, but we've gotten further in the MOU development with Santa Rosa City. Of course, we're working to at the same time with Roseland, but I think that we're going to launch Santa Rosa City first, and that's really just because of the MOU development.
Okay. Well, it'll be interesting to see how it all works.
Yes, it will.
All right. So are we? Is there further discussion? All right. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right. So you have. Tim? Did you chime in?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Okay, so that takes us to item 10.2, authorize interim library director to execute agreement and application for participation in the CalCard program.
So moved.
Okay, again, Commissioner Garcia. Do I have a second?
Second, but with discussion.
Commissioner McKenzie. Discussion.
Oh, okay. I was just curious. I think this is a great idea. I was wondering who all is going to get the cards, and also I have to admit that I didn't read every single word in this large document, but it seemed like the accounting was really good, and there's a lot of accountability and double checks and so forth. But I was just curious about how many people would actually have credit cards.
Right now, we're going to push it out to division managers and branch managers. And at this point, well, it's a living document. It would be a program that would, will always be subject to change. But right now, that would be the extent. It would be to branch managers and division managers. The good thing about it is we can, you can change the transaction limit and the credit limits. We run into things, the credit limit all the time with the current ones, especially around summer reading and staff day. And so everybody's always asking if there's room on the credit card to do things, because more and more vendors are just, wanting you do it online or whatever. And it was really important for me, and I think the organization, to have the user manual in place before we even rolled it out. The OMT has seen it. The branch managers at our last PSMT meeting have seen it, and we'll see how well it works. There's always some blips and things, but we'll address the blips as we move forward.
Any other comments or questions? All right, thank you. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, that's a unanimous, and Commissioner May voted yes. All right, so that takes us to 10.3, approved naming policy.
I so move.
Second.
Okay, Heaven Ridge and Garcia. Discussion?
Yes, discussion. On page 122, at the top, B, recognition will be for 5 years or for the life of the room, unless the individual or corporation provides continuing additional support. How do we decide whether it's 5 years or the life of the room? Or why just 5? I mean, it's just kind of a short term or forever. And I didn't understand why that was thrown in there.
It kind of gives room for the decision to be up to the commission. So it's not for 1 year. Looking at other naming policies that libraries have, it's, I don't want to say standard, but it kind of gives that time frame that you all can decide, or if something changes or the room is changed into something else, or the walls are taken down and it's not a room anymore, or something like that.
Is this like a stadium naming policy where after 5 years it's up for the highest bidder? Is that what you're trying to say?
That's what it is.
Well, it's one way to get more money, I guess.
Right. That's a good question. It's open to what the commission decides what they would like, at the time. Yeah.
It still seems to be kind of strange. It can either be 5 years or forever. There's not anything in there for 5 years or some other limited period of time or something like that. I don't know. It just seems kind of strange to have super short term or forever as the choices. I also wanted to make a comment about the Friends of the Library, and for a long time I've wondered why we haven't had plaques in our library for all the things that the Friends of the Library have paid for, certainly in our branch. So I'm very pleased to see that this can happen now, and that based on the under general, it says multiple financial contributions that merit recognition. In such cases, naming opportunities being recognition of the original donor or the individual corporation designated by the Board of Support Organization. I'm not sure quite what that means.
Can you say what page you're on?
122, same page. That was section 4, general.
Is it my understanding that legal has looked at this and that this comes from what other libraries have as well?
Correct. We looked at other libraries and took a lot of the terminology, taking out naming of buildings, obviously, out of this, and legal has reviewed this.
This seems broad enough that it'll open up to future things. For example, a bookmobile could be a naming opportunity. Am I correct as I read this? Is that?
That's a good question, since it's not an actual.
It talks about equipment, so
right.
that'd be a piece of equipment.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Just checking for the future.
Yeah, why not?
Could I go back to the Friends of the Library thing again? So if you look at under general, which is section 4 general, item B, Sonoma County Public Library Foundation and the Friends of the Sonoma County Public Library may contribute multiple financial contributions that merit recognition. In such cases, naming opportunities will be in recognition of the original donor. I don't know what that, I don't get that. Or for the individual/corporation designated by the Board of Support Organization. It's very awkward and unclear. I think what we're trying to say is that the Friends of the Library, different groups, make donations, constantly, and so there could be one plaque that says, this library is benefited by the multiple contributions of the Friends Library or something. I don't think that says it very clearly. I don't understand that in recognition of the original donor or for the individual/corporation designated by the Board of Support Organization.
The naming policy is geared more towards those individual donors, so that section would be if a donor contributed to the Friends for the library, but via the Friends, that kind of thing. This policy doesn't necessarily address all of the Friends, and if we are going to build or put up plaques for the Friends, it doesn't mean that still cannot be done for the Friends, though.
So you're saying if somebody made a big donation through the Friends, then the plaque would be the original donor.
Right, that's what that statement is.
Okay, so can we add a section in there about the multiple contributions of the Friends can have a plaque? I know it doesn't say that we couldn't, but I would like to see that addressed. Because I think the Friends are some of our most consistent donors.
I can add something to this addressing the Friends if the commission wants that added and this be placed on a later commission agenda.
Could we change the policy if it was passed today? I mean, that would be a question that I have. This document is important for the fundraiser for Roseland, which is happening right now. And people need this for big money donations and for the future of the building of Roseland. You can ask the people who made the motion if they'll change it for you for the Friends, or could we add it after it's approved?
Well, I'd be in support of that, given the time crunch and what you're talking about. I understand. I would like to see this amended at some fairly close in time point about adding a section about the Friends.
So we could approve this tonight and at a later date amend it?
Yeah.
Okay. And do you have an idea of what you wanted to say, Barbara? Because that would be helpful if you write that up and forward it to Director Gray so that it can expedite it. If you have some thoughts, and it can come back to the commission, we can discuss it and tweak it if necessary.
Okay, thank you.
That'd be great.
I can also consult with our council to see if adding that or what you mean by the Friends overall donation even is included in this already without having to add something. Otherwise, we can add something at a later date to this.
Okay, so All right, with that said, we have a motion for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Oh, thank you, Tim. Opposed? All right. All in favor. All right. So then that takes us to, we have no action items by resolution. There are no lab appointments that I'm aware of. What are the items that should be included in the commission notes? Suggestions?
Your mic's not on.
Your mic's not on.
Right? I'm sorry. The approve the student one in education card policy.
The charging stations?
Yes.
I would say the library naming policy. I think that's a biggie.
The what?
Well, we just voted on the library naming policy is important.
Information about together at the table.
Okay, that's great. Is there room for anything else? That's good. Okay. Great. All right.
Should we talk about, excuse me, should we give an update on the director search process?
Okay.
That's of interest to
And if we have any space, I really think this whole new concept of leasing books is a really important one, that people are going to have access to the hot new books much more easily.
All right. And are there agenda items for future commission meetings?
It's clear one of them is the role of the Friends in naming and gifting policy.
Okay. I know we have some planned. I think October. What are we thinking of for October? There's
The library hours discussion. Angelina was going to present the commission with data from the surveys about the library hours.
Okay, I noticed that seems to be ongoing too. I was looking at the website and there's meetings planned through November, it looked like, about the same topic. So we're going to continue to visit it. But we'll have some information in October about where we stand. Great. Okay. So our next regular meeting is Monday, October 2nd at 6:30 in the Santa Rosa City Council chambers. And we are adjourned. Thank you all very much. It is 8:15.